Animation is a medium with nearly infinite possibilities, but only every so often is there a show that fully utilizes that boundlessness to create something entirely unique. People often view animation as something made for children. However, in reality, it's capable of telling original and profound stories that tackle challenging themes such as loss, war, and revenge in mature and emotionally intelligent ways that couldn't be explored in the same way anywhere else. Wistoria, Wand and Sword is not one of those shows. I mean, it's still pretty cool though. Just look at this. Long ago, the world was cloaked in darkness, and people were terrorized by the celestial host, whatever that is, until one day, 5 wizards stepped forward and drove that darkness away. They were called the Javan, and their story became legend. Yeah, stop me if you think you've heard that story before. I know it's pretty similar to Black Clover and Naruto, but I promise as I go on, it only gets worse. In the present day, the 5 most powerful mages are still named the Magiavander, and they sit atop a tower shielding the sky. In order to become a Magiavander, the most magically gifted students train for years at the prestigious Regarded Magical Academy. Oh, and Will goes here too. Now, believe it or not, Will Surford, the main character, can't use magic. Hey, I'm not judging them. I can't use magic either. Unless... Subscribe. Did it work? Unfortunately, his peers aren't as understanding. He's disregarded and mocked by his classmates and even his teachers. Pretty much everyone aside from Colette. She's talented, smart, cute, and of course this wouldn't be a shonen if she wasn't head over heels for Will, who, by the way, could not care less about her because he's too focused on... This is Elfie, and she is way out of Will's league. Not only is Elfie the youngest Magiavander ever, she's also probably the most notable character in the series so far, having created 12 new magics, a feat no one else has accomplished. And she is, of course, Will's childhood best friend. When these two were little, they made a promise. They would both study magic and become Magiavander, and when they did, they would look up at the sky together from the tower. However, only one of them has been able to do so, because the other has been too busy trying to convince everyone that he's weak. Will may not have magic, but he does have the power of being the main character. The show really tries to have its cake and eat it too with him. Will is an OP main character, and at the same time, the show tries its best to convince us that he's an underdog. For example, Sion is one of the most gifted students in the class, and he spends most of his time bullying Will while the teachers just watch. And every time they interact, Will acts like he's scared of Sion, like he couldn't take him in a 3v1 anytime. In the first episode, Will is in a dungeon trying to earn credits when he suddenly hears Sion's friend scream at the top of his lungs because they were a bit outmatched. Will rushes over, but stops himself and thinks, wait, what if I just don't save them? You know, because Sion nearly burnt him to a crisp earlier that day. He only has this thought for a second though, before... The world of Wistoria is a world of mages. So, unable to use magic, Will becomes a warrior, wielding a magic sword. Oh! Will has this weird dichotomy between acting helpless most of the time, and at other times, thinking he's Sung Ji-nu.
Wakey wakey!
Heck, the first time we really see him struggle is against his own professor, and even that's only because he didn't have his sword. By the way, this teacher absolutely despises Will for whatever reason. Actually, it's probably because he's your average defense against the dark arts teacher, and Will's a muggle. It's just kind of crazy how everyone just accepts this teacher ripping on this kid in front of the entire class. I know it sounds like I'm complaining a lot, because I sort of am, but that's not to say I don't like this show. In fact, I think it's pretty good. And honestly, I don't think I'd be enjoying the series as much if the Underdog plotline didn't exist. The show has a good amount of fun with it, and it lends the show to have some absolutely hype moments. However, to be honest, none of these moments would really work for me if it weren't for the heart-pumping animation during every scene in the show. The animators at Atlas and Bandai Namco have done wonders for the show in their co-production of it. You can feel the animators' passion, hard work, and sleep deprivation emanating through the screen in every single frame. Even outside of the action scenes, there will be little character acting moments where the movements and smears become insanely smooth. I don't know why, they're just really satisfying to me. Everything just has this stunning shine to it. The character designs, the action animation and choreography, the immersive background art, and the abs? Okay, buddy. I thought you said you didn't have magic. So what kind of sorcery is this? Point is, the animation is what really made this show stand out to me initially. So I probably wouldn't even be talking about it right now if it weren't for the consistent dedication from the animators. So far, I've done a lot of ripping on the series and comparing it to Black Clover, and honestly, that isn't entirely fair. Heck, if you remember the early parts of that show, yeah, it really wasn't all that great either. Wistoria has decided to borrow many of its core elements from series like that, but has actually improved upon it in some places, namely the pacing issues and the animation. So when it does borrow tropes like tournament arcs, for instance, it at least looks good doing it. Also, I love how the show has the exact same announcer duo as MHA, the eccentric commentator and the depressed teacher. But who knows? There's a lot of time for the show to carve out its own identity in the same way that Black Clover did, and I certainly hope it does. But if I'm gonna be completely honest, I think my biggest problem with this show is me. I've watched a crap ton of shonens, a genre known for its tropes and cliches, and Wistoria is no different. I want to reiterate that I really do like this show. In fact, the first thing I'd change isn't the slightly frustrating plot, the generic characters, or the unoriginal setting. The first thing I would change is the release date. I know for a fact that if this show came out 3 or maybe even 4 years ago, I would have thought it was peak. Now, I'm not saying I've grown out of shonen or anything. Heck no. I'm more pointing out that there are so many anime now that for a show like this to jump out at me, it has to do something special. Whether it's JJK's pacing, Undead Unluck's power system, MHA's score, or Demon Slayer's art style, there has to be something there to set it apart, so that I can justify the time spent not catching up with One Piece. I mean, doing my schoolwork. Now, it's not like this show doesn't have any merit. I mean, have you been looking at the screen? This show pulls off action extremely well, and there are many examples of the environment playing right into the battles themselves. I'm not exactly sure of the logistics here, but I mean, it looked cool, so I don't care. I could honestly see it as a great battle shonen for newcomers to the genre, or just anyone who thinks there aren't enough of them already. In the end, Wistoria Wand and Sword was exactly what I thought it would be. A well-animated hype show that probably isn't anything you haven't already seen in terms of story. But when that story follows the shonen formula down to a T, it's kind of hard to mess up. Essentially every trope you'd expect from a battle shonen is here, and they're all at least done pretty well. And when a show does that, it's kind of hard not to enjoy it. All that being said, I've already watched all of it, and if we're being honest, you probably will too. Also, thank you all for 1,004 subscribers. I really appreciate it, and see you later.